morning and welcome to our live talk program. This is Lloyd Grubb here, your host on Revive Reform Radio, doing our live talk program covering motivation on this Monday. And I'm looking at a topic to eat or promote that. Is it ignorance, compromise, somebody's broken, break, or they're a believer? So I'll get to it again. So to eat or promote that ignorance, compromise, break, broken, or a believer. So this is what we'll be looking at here this week as I go through a new theme. Very important, very interesting thought to myself. Let us pray. Our Father who art in heaven, dear Lord, I thank you for your word and for the way that you guide us along. And may you be with my mind and bless those that are listening. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. So this new theme here I'm looking at is what I would call a meditation. It's an observation. And I'm going to be sharing some thoughts with you here on this observation, something that I've observed throughout my life, and possibly you have observed it. And I think this would be a fascinating thought. You're probably very well familiar with the thought, but obviously I'm going to try to share it with you here, and hopefully it will bless you. But as I say, this is something that you have probably observed. I've observed all my life. And so before I explain the topic again, I'll read my theme, which is why do some only consider mainstream and not alternative? And then I'm going to look at this week the safety of mainline, mainstream government, other proof channels and systems. What makes a person a child or head of these systems or how they become. So that's the process of meditation. So I don't know if you've observed this throughout your life, but this is something I've observed throughout my life. And so I've been wanting to do this. And then something triggered me. I'll tell you in a second, but I'm going to go back to it. So I had this on a list of topics that I like to discuss and do, or themes that I like to do. And then I saw something and it triggered a thought to say, oh, I probably should do this one sooner. A few weeks ago, I said, okay, I'm going to do this one soon. So notice here, to eat or not, to eat or promote. So I don't know if you've ever watched like a video, like a newscast or a sermon or whatever it is, and the person is promoting something or they ate something. In other words, they were put in a situation, either they're presenting something or they swallowed something and regurgitated. And you said, okay, that's interesting. Because you're looking at them and you're thinking, do they believe that? Or are they forced to believe that? Or they just edit because of whatever reason? So my topic now is to eat or promote. When a person is eating or promoting something, that means they're taking it in or they're promoting it. Are they doing this because they're ignorant? Is it a compromise, a reasonable compromise, not a negative? So, although this topic might come across as negative as you hear me flesh this out, some of it is not negative, some of it is observational. I'm just observing and I'm wondering, is this person making a reasonable compromise, or is this person just, they really don't know, so they're just doing what they have to do? And so that's how that's working. Or or did this eating of that information or promoting it, did that break them? In other words, they rationalize, I need to keep my job or whatever it is, I have to eat this. Observational, or is it this person was already broken, so they just go along with the process now because they're already broken? Or are they a believer? They really believe what they're saying and this is what they're doing. So hence, go back to my topic, my theme now. Why do some only consider mainstream, not alternative? Are they just ignorant? They just really don't know. That's all they know, and that's what they trust. Or are they making a compromise? Or did something happen that broke them? Could be a negative thing. Somebody belong to, like, say, they had a bad experience. Like if somebody belongs to, say, a cult or something like that. And so they're scared of anything that is not approved by proper channels. That could be a reasonable conclusion. Or is it that they are broken already, and so they're broken in, so to speak? Or are they a believer? They really believe that this is the only way to do life. And so then you must go through proper channels and systems. So what make a person a child or head of these systems and how they become that? So this has been a fascinating observation for myself from being a child. I always wonder, how does that person I should say more teenage years. How does that person get there? What it is? Those people always are fascination. Their fascination for me. Always wonder who becomes that person and how did they get there. My main text will be in John chapter 7. I'm going to deal with John chapter 7, a major portion of it, I think 20 verses. But I'm going to read first verse 6 through 8. Verse 6 through 8, and then I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to go to a text of one of the most interesting compromises in the Bible that I see and fascinating story to look at. And I'm going to come to this very fascinating experience with Christ and his disciples. It's primarily with Christ and his disciples and how he talked to his disciples about this situation. And hopefully that this will bring it into focus what I'm talking about here. Because as I say, I think this is one of the most fascinating things to observe. How does a person get there? How do they get in that position? Whether it be a president, a governor, a senator, an ambassador. How does that person become that thing? And then when we talk about how does a person just believe 100% in mainline, mainstream, and they consider nothing else? What is going on? As I say, is it ignorance or whatever? I'm going to get back to that. So very interesting. This is Christ here, which is the alternative to the mainline system. And Christ here is a carpenter's son. He's not supposed to be a preacher or a teacher of the people. And really, I don't think he was even supposed to be a rabbi. And you'll see that from this text. I'm going to get to this, but I'm going to read the first part here, what I'm going to get to. John chapter 7, verse 5 through 6, I think 5 through 8. Notice here, for neither did his brethren believe him. So that's very interesting. So that's an interesting way to state it. Neither did his brethren believe him. So that's a tough situation to be in. Then Jesus said unto them, my time is not yet come. This is talking about a feast. I'll get to it in a second. It's talking about a feast. They're supposed to go to a feast, and they say, you're going to go to this feast, show yourself openly, and they're not getting it. Because remember, he's telling them, no, they're going to kill me. And they're saying to him, go to the feast openly. So there's a disconnect right here. And that's where I'm always wonder what happened how does a person disconnect? Are they just ignorant and not listening? What happened? What's going on? We're going to try to deal with that this week. So notice here, they didn't believe him. So that's a tough situation to be in if they don't believe you. These are your disciples, right? And definitely, his definite brethren at this time, literal blood brethren, didn't believe him either. So terrible. Then said Jesus unto them, my time is not yet come, but your time is always ready. Depending on translation you read, it will be like you're good all the time, basically. So you can go to the feast, but I can't. My time is not always come. So what happens when a person is that person, that they can go, but Christ can go? How do you reconcile that in your life? Notice here, I'll read again. Then Jesus said unto them, my time is not yet come, but your time is always. Always. You can go to the feast anytime you want. The world cannot hate you, but it hated me because I testify of it, that the works thereof are evil. So, very powerful statement here. Christ says to the disciples, the world cannot hate you. Why? Because Christ testified of the world that the works is evil. So what is the disciples doing? What were they testifying of? Right? See, that's important. So when you have somebody that is accepted by the world, the question is, as I say, are they in that position because they're ignorant? Are they in there because they made a compromise? Are they in there because they're broken? They're gonna be broken. They just have to break them in a little bit more. Or they are believers in what they believe in, and they just can sell lies and do war, famine, pestilence, and they're comfortable. It's very interesting, and I tend to like to watch people who are in some of those compromised position and watch them in interviews, because I'm always fascinated not so much by the apparatus, but by the people who are promoting the apparatus, and I want to see if they're comfortable or they have to talk a lot of double speak. I'm sure you just watch the main people in any of these situations. Watch if they do a lot of double speak, or they really believe it and they sound like they're convinced, or they look like they're stressed out and they're sweating bullets, saying what they're saying. So Jesus says, My time is not yet, but your time is always. The world cannot hate you. It's impossible. You and it is the same. It's crazy. You and it is the same, but me it hated because I testify of it. Why? That the works thereof are evil. So Christ says, "Go ye up to unto the feast, this feast. I go not yet unto the feast, this feast, for my time is not yet full come." So Christ says, if I go openly, I could get killed. Because my time is not fully come, I'm not gonna go yet. And the probably disciples looking at him like, "What are you talking about? Just go to them and do some miracles. Do some of those miracles you do. They'll love you." Christ said, "No." Remember, even the Pharisees later on says about Jesus that we're not killing you because of the works, so to speak, because the works kind of confuse us. What we're killing is because what you keep talking. We don't like what you say. You keep telling us that we're terrible, right? So the person now is in the system telling the system that they're terrible. They're good. Sorry, the person who's in the system telling the system that it's good. What happened there? So I'll tell you what happened. So I was watching a piece. So I'd want to talk about that because there were some things going on. Quite a few things been going on for years, and I've always had this thought. But after how many years of doing these programs, I've never thought about. I never did a topic like this, so or a theme like this. So anyhow, I've it written down and said one day I'm going to talk about this. What is it when a person say they believe 100% in anything that's FDA approved? Well, I always thought, what would be in that mindset of that person? Because I'm not in that mindset. So people in that mindset, I'm fascinated with, because since I'm not in it, I find it as a fascinating study to try to watch interviews and people who, like doctors and people who saw that, and regular people who saw that stuff all day long. They eat that stuff, lunch, dinner, and breakfast. So what is it? So something had triggered the thought again, and I said, okay, I'm gonna have to do this. When recently they pull epinephrine. Anything with epinephrine is a nasal decongestant, and they say it doesn't do anything. It's basically a drugs. The only thing it's good for is to use it to make literally methamphetamine. Somehow they figure out, people on the street figure out how to buy the cough syrup, or no, the decongestant, and break it down and make drugs and then sell it illegally. So it's part of our drug problem in America. So I saw that and I said, I need to go back to that topic one day. I need to do that topic, I should say. What is it when somebody just eat everything that they say is FDA approved? What is it that they don't know? And it's fascinating to know, how do they come to that? Are they just ignorant, as I say? Are they, what I'm saying? Are they ignorant? Are they compromised? Or is doing that going to break them? Are they already broken? Or are they just a believer? And then, so okay, you're right. I'm saying, okay, I'm gonna do that one day. And then recently, now I was watching a video on CNBC News on with an interview with a multi-billionaire who is a big-time investor and would be, you say, would represent the system. He's part of the system. He's a believer. He believes in biotech and all this stuff that, say, if you listen to me, you would realize very quickly that I don't believe in. So he believes in that system. This is his system, so to speak. And he's a child of the system. So people like that always fascinated me, because I always wonder what it is like to be 100% in on the system. And so, but my thinking is, again, when I'm watching someone like that, I'm in like a neutral zone in my brain, if you can believe that. I'm just like observational. I observe life. I don't participate for the most part. And so I'm observing him, and he's talking, and I find it very fascinating. As I say, people are as fascinating because they're the head of the system. And my thing is, again, I'm gonna go to my topic again. Is the person, when they're eating something or promoting something, what is driving that? That's where my question is. Because I don't believe what they're selling. So I'm thinking, well, how did they come to that? Are they just genuinely ignorant, or what? So he said, the question had come up about RFK Jr., the person running for the nomination to become the president, one of the people running. And he said, the question was, the interviewer says, well, RFK Jr. is very anti-vaccine. And he said, yeah, but he says, he says in the interview, he said, I have some questions. He says he put forward some good point. He said 80 something percent of the things he says about vaccine, 80% something percent he said about vaccine, he said is it seemed to be right, or he seemed to have a point 80 something percent of the time. So I said, wow, that's interesting. So I'm listening now. And then he says, my child is a toddler. Something I think like that he says. And he says that he or she, I can't remember if it's a he or she, is scheduled to have 73 vaccines. I can't remember how short of a time. And I like, they say I didn't physically, my mouth didn't physically drop, but I was like, wow, 73 vaccine. He says 73. So he said, really, I questioned that. And I was like, oh, so 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 that's fascinating. That's fascinated me, that I'm like, go back to my topic again. He has to eat that. His child really has to eat that. And but he has to mentally eat that. And he questions it. He said, 73. And he said, so I have questions. And I was thinking, man, this is one of the head of the system. And he's questioning it. Because I'm always fascinated by, why would a person, what type of mindset a person would have to be in, that the doctor look in your face and say, your child, say your child is 3, and by 6, your child have to eat 73 vaccines. And you don't your whatever mindset you have to be in. Just bear with me here, because it's a meditation. It's not, I'm not preaching here. This is a fascinating thought. I don't know if you have ever thought about that. What type of mindset you have to be in, that you would say, yeah, that sounds good. I believe in it. Anything the FDA approve, and I believe in that process. 73. So a child at 3 need, say for instance, I don't know what the age. Don't quote me on this, but whatever the age is, a child could be 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know what it is, and they need a HPV. So human papilloma virus vaccine, which probably is supposed to protect against STD. One of the STD itself, HPV, STD. So is the child sexually active at 3 or 4 or 5? Like, so just keep pumping that child, hitting that child with vaccine. So it is that where we say, oh, so a child of the system, this system itself, I would say, the investor in the system, because it's a big investor in like biotech and stuff, is put into a situation where they have to question for the child's sake. So my thing is that when I'm looking at people like that, the children of the system, and I'm watching them and they say something, and I'm looking at them and say, they believe that? This is fascinating, because when we talk about children's system, we're talking about often people who graduate from Ivy League colleges, have a degree, master's degree, PhD, multi-millionaire, multi-billionaire, whatever, and they are the darling of the system. But the things they're eating, I'm like, isn't the highest concentration of Down syndrome, autism, all kind of spectrum disorder, is in their children? Don't they never question why people growing up in squalor, their kids don't have those things? They never question those things. So I'm always find fascinating that. So they fascinate me in a sense, because when they regurgitate stuff, I'm thinking, don't they never stop, like when they go home and say, wait a minute, isn't there equivalent discussion going on? If I talk about this, the same arguments I put forward about this, I can apply to this. Don't never stop. So for me, I'm just introduce you. Hopefully that's clear enough. If it's not clear, I'll clear it up with these 2 texts I'm going to read. That is, I'm not saying it is a wrong thing or a right thing to be in that situation. I'm just finding it fascinating when a person swallows certain things or eats certain things or promotes certain things. I wonder why, and certain things, not everything, because I believe in systems. Like, although I'm, as you sit in me here, you notice, you must know by now that I'm independent and alternative in my thinking, because I believe there's other sources of information to go to other than what is approved, because we see the FDA approve stuff all the time, so much, and they have to backtrack, or it killed people, cause cancer. Just think about it. A few years ago, I think over a decade ago, lots of women in America, the amount of them in America was taking horse urine on a regular basis every day for what you call it, when women get above their period. Can't remember what it's called. And so when women get to a certain age, they will give them horse urine. And so they had women all day long, and I don't say I might as well they go to the horse and catch some of the urine and drink it, but they had women all day long doing horse urine. And I remember old world witchcraft I'd learned was part of it was you drink pee or urine. And to grow, to get to an adult age and find out that it's a regular thing for women to take urine. And literally say if you break the capsule, it smells like urine. And they'll take the horse urine because it has a high amount of, I think, premarin in the pregnant mare's urine. That's a proper way to say it. When so it wouldn't be a male horse, it would be a female horse when she's pregnant. They'll get the urine concentrated, put some powder on it, and take it into a tablet, and the women would take it. And millions of women in America would drink urine, not drink it, but take urine all day long. And you look at this, you say that's all world witchcraft. What was going on here? But you realize that they will eat that literally, and you think nobody didn't think about this. And then the FDA came out later on and said this thing that we approve is cause cancer, and women were dying of cancer because of this thing. And I think about it and I say, but like nobody, I mean, there was people I met that questioned it, but it seemed like the majority of people just swallow that. And you're thinking, and if you speak out against it, you were viewed as a quack. Literally, there's people out there, their full-time job is to do quack alert, to tell people that if you don't swallow everything the FDA put out, I'm not saying the FDA don't put out things that has value, but if you don't swallow what the FDA put out, you're a quack and you're crazy, you're alternative, you have negative stigma. And I always find it fascinating those who are promoting that. And always if they do an interview, I'll click the interview, watch it quick, because I'm always fascinated with that mindset that would think that the FDA, who promoted women to drink pregnant mare's urine, is looked upon as there's no question mark, but somebody that is saying probably take some herbs is looked upon as dangerous. And this is the country we live in. So this is where hopefully I've given you some backdrop to over the years. I've always find it fascinating. Who does this? Who are these people that never even does even question it a little? I said, man, as you're taking a tablet, and you're gonna take the tablet in your mouth, you say, urine. I'm taking urine. What could bad happen? But there we have it, pregnant urine, and so much over the years. And then when you've done the documentaries, if you have time, go online, watch a documentary, and you'll see how much money going back and forth, bribes, and that there's things that are approved that they should never be approved because they're not clinically proven. Nothing. I don't care what they tell me. Because if you look at the documentary, some of these things were not clinically proven because it came back and it showed that they were lies and they were money changing hands. And that's what clinically proved it. This has been documented. But somehow, mainline public seem like they don't know. So they believe in the system. And I'm like, how could they not even question? I'm not saying just throw it away, but at least question, like, how did they get that approved? Might as well you just go to your pregnant dog and just get the urine and concentrate it and make it a powder and sell it also on the black market. Probably that will heal them. So 1 King chapter 18, verse 1 onwards. 1 King 18, verse 1 onward. Notice it says here, and it came to pass after many days that the word of the Lord came to Elijah in the third year, saying, Go, show thyself unto Ahab, and I will send rain upon the earth. And Elijah went to show himself unto Ahab, and there was a sore famine in Samaria. So this is the story of Ahab and Jezebel. Primary focus here is not going to be on Ahab, Jezebel, or Elijah, but on the servant of Ahab, which is Obadiah, which is very fascinating. Now, I come to this because Obadiah represents this fascination in my mind. Because Obadiah is a person that is doing a good work, so to speak, but is in the king's house. And so I brought you here because I find this as a more fascinating story, because he's still, Ahab is still representative lead, a leader of God's, leader of the people. I don't say God's people, but yeah, God's people, I can say, leader of the people. Elijah represent what you call the alternative, or what you call the prophet. He's not in on what Ahab and Jezebel is doing. They're doing their thing, and Elijah's doing their thing. But now you find this very fascinating person here, Obadiah. He's in, because just in case somebody thinking I'm not thinking, I'm thinking that a person can't be in a certain situation and still try to maintain their objectiveness. This is all you call it, right? You're still working for the system, because somebody said, "Well, Lloyd, so are you thinking that somebody work for the government or for FD or whatever? They're bad." No, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's interesting as a study. So that's why I want to tell you. Say I'm looking at it from a neutral point of view. To be honest, so Obadiah would be one of the best person to come to. So I don't believe that's if somebody's a judge or the president or something like that. They can't be just doing their best. I'm just saying it's always fascinating when a person eats something and don't even question it. That's where my problem is. Where a person don't even think twice and say, "Well, you sure?" I watched a video last night that on Sky News that they took down. I checked it this morning. They took it down, where the prime minister, so not Netanyahu, another person I'm not too familiar with from Israel, said that people, the Palestinians were shooting rockets from their no rockets, sorry, missiles. Because that's a total different thing. Missiles. I had to watch it like about 4 times or so. I had to keep rewinding it. I said, did he just say that? He says missiles from their living room. That could go 250 kilometers. And I'm saying it must be that he's having a problem with English, and it could be. I'm being honest. So you see, this is all I think. When I watch something like that, I'm thinking this is amazing. Did he just say people shooting missiles from their living room? I mean, I know that sounds like a comedy, like a missile. I'm understand somebody throwing a grenade from their living room. I question if somebody could do a rocket from their living room. It would be like a movie where the cartoon where the person shoot the rocket and then they burn up and they're just black. But he said a missile from their living room, and this. I hope that he's not like a cartoon villain, and he's just saying that, and he just think we're nuts, and he's saying that. But my hope is that he's just really, what you call it, he's he's lost in because he wasn't being translated. He was saying that in English, but his English got the better of him, and so to translate the words in his head, he might make a mistake and say from their living room. He probably meant from their backyard, and he used the word living room. So that's possible. I hope, because I hope we're not watching cartoons here, and this is a cartoon villain. Well, to tell you that probably something went wrong, Sky News pulled the video down, because it's a horrendous video. Even the comment section was like, "This reminds us of America with when Obama was talking about, chemical weapons in Syria, and then on the Bush, he was talking about weapons of mass destruction." And as I said, when somebody goes in and sell that, like, Colin Powell is dead now, but I wanted somebody to interview him to say, "Okay, what happened there? Is how do you go in and sell that? Like, you believe, or you're a believer, or you're just ignorant, or are you broken? Did they break you? What happened? Well, how do you do that?" You see, I'm fascinated. Those are the exit interviews I wish they did, like outtakes of movies. So you can really, like, what happened, man? So this is Obadiah now. So back to Obadiah. Obadiah is in a cartoon, literally. It's a cartoon evil. Ahab and Jezebel. He sits with two cartoons. They're just unreal. And so how does he get into this picture? The Bible gives us these fascinating stories. So notice here, and Elijah went and showed himself unto Obadiah. And there was a sore famine in Samaria. And Ahab called Obadiah, which was the governor of his house. Now Obadiah feared the Lord greatly. Now he didn't just fear the Lord, fear the Lord greatly. Now, how do you get a job like this? Somebody that feared the Lord. You with, as I said, two cartoon evil. Now, interesting enough, I could understand how he got the job. So let me say it this way. If you've ever done like a character study of Ahab, Ahab to me is almost like represents Adam, and Eve represent what's her name, Jezebel, but the Jezebel on broken, like not Jezebel consider what she just did, but Jezebel just straight up into devil it meant. Why? Because Ahab, as you know, you've worshipped with so many Ahabs over the years. Ahab just represent a guy that seemed to be just he's just controlled by his his wife, and he's just compromising and making a mess, and he just become like a cartoon villain. But to me, the question is, I don't think he's ignorant. I think he probably started with a compromise, and then he went from compromise to he's broken, and now he's a believer. It seems he just gone full evil, and whatever his wife said, that shall he do, not the Lord. So notice here, and he seemed like he's very spoiled, and he's just a spoiled rotten brat, and whatever if he cries, the wife say go kill people, and he say okay, I'll kill them. Weird. So notice here, Obadiah feared the Lord greatly. So the Bible put that in there for you, so that you know that what we're dealing with here. For it was so when Jezebel cut off the prophets of the Lord that Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid them by 50 in a cave and fed them with bread and water. So Obadiah was not compromised in the sense of Obadiah basically used the king's money and the king's horses and whatever, and the king's men or whatever he did. He fed the prophets of the Lord. So Obadiah is that fascinating person in the story. And Ahab said unto Obadiah, go into the land, unto all the all fountains of waters, and unto all brooks. Peradventure we may find grass to save the horses and mules alive, that we lose not all the beasts. So I'll pause there again. My problem, like I always say to people, I don't have a problem with a person get when I was young, they would say a blight, get an opportunity, get a preferential treatment. I don't have a problem with it. If somebody ever hear me, they probably think I have a problem with somebody getting a preferential treatment. My problem is if you get a preferential treatment, you take care of others. You look out for somebody else. You get in, then you pull some other people in with you. That's my thing, because I don't think like preferential treatment is gonna be somebody like you and they get you in. Well, somebody you like, you get them in also. Wink, wink. You know what I'm saying? I see Obadiah is in, but Obadiah is serving his master, but Obadiah is also taking care of the prophets, right? My issue is when a person got in and they close the door behind them, or they got in and they pull up the ladder so that you can't get up also. You be like, listen, you get up, man. Hey, what happened to the ladder? Oh, you pull it up. You got in. See, that's where my problem is. My problem is, as they say, you hook up a brother. If you got in, my problem is not a person getting in. My problem is a person getting, and they basically take up the ladder. They close the door so that nobody's getting in. And I'm like, don't you know what's going on? Oh no, I'm in. So Obadiah's in, good. So, you know what I mean? Come on now. That's a study in itself. We talk about that one day. If you get in, man, you take care of somebody else. Close the door on others. So they divided the land between them to pass throughout. Ahab went one way by himself, and Obadiah went another way by himself. And Obadiah was in the way. Behold, Elijah met him, and he knew him, and fell on his face, and said, art thou that my Lord Elijah? So notice the Bible makes it clear. His behavior is very clear. He's in the house, but he's not. He's taking care of his business. And I can respect that. This is very fascinating. And he answered and said, I go, tell thy Lord, behold, Elijah is here. And he said, what have I sinned? That thou wouldest deliver thy servant into the hand of Ahab to slay me. So he's very clear. So no matter where he's at, he seemed like he's totally aware of what's going on. So he's with Ahab, and he know this man will kill people. He's with Elijah. Elijah say, hey, tell Ahab that come, I'm here. And he said, what? If I tell Ahab that I met you, Ahab going to kill me. Right? So he knows who he's working for. You see, this is to me what it is. It's like, I understand, like you're in. You don't know. Like you take care of people. You don't understand what you're in. I'm not saying that we live in a wicked world, and the Bible says Satan has control of this world. But if you're righteous and you're in, what you do? Playing the fool? You don't know that says, listen, what the system is what the system is. You take care of people, right? You don't want to expose yourself, but you be honest with the system, what you're in. But there's people who are in this world and in the system, and they're sold on it. And I'm like, oh, like, you don't understand what's going on. Like, the system is abusing people, and if you can relieve somebody that is being abused, you relieve them. We're not within this world. The devil have control of the people who are in the system. I remember the devil is beating them up because somebody tell me that their kids not getting beaten up. They're not getting beaten up. If the system will feed its own, because when the system was doing it to the children of the system and feeding them horse urine and then cause them to die of cancer. And you have this high rate of cancer in the United States. But who was taking it? It was the people in the system. But if you're in it and you say, hey, listen, Lloyd, I want you to tell your wife that, hey, don't take that stuff. That stuff causes cancer. We've seen the data coming in. But the FDA won't relent. You hook me up. You say, oh yeah, really? Yeah. Don't tell your wife not to drink horse urine anymore. I mean, and that's what I expect from somebody, right? I don't expect them to believe it. And it's like, I mean, probably if you're on TV, but at least come to me privately and say, hey, listen, stick the information to me. Let's say, listen, heads up. The system is killing its own. Because the children of the system is dying. And we see this going on in the country. But the people in the system, they're like cartoon villains. They believe it. I'm like, they believe that? They don't see the data? So notice here, he says, and the Lord and the Lord God liveth. There is no nation or kingdom whither my Lord hath not sent to seek thee. And when they said, he is not there, he took an oath of the kingdom and nation that they found thee not. And now thou sayest, go, tell thy Lord, behold, Elijah is here. And it shall come to pass, as soon as I am gone from thee, that the Spirit of the Lord shall carry thee whither I am not. And so when I come and tell Ahab, he cannot find thee, he shall slay me, but I thy servant fear the Lord from my youth. So he said, listen, I'm with the Lord from my youth. So this is a person that believed. He believed that the only reason why Elijah could not be found by Ahab was that the Lord was protecting him. He's very clear. He's telling you, he's thinking. He's telling Elijah here, and it's recorded, that his thinking was, oh yeah, it's the Lord that was delivering you from Ahab. So he's a believer. He's just talking plain. He's like, and then Ahab gonna kill me because you're gonna disappear. So notice here, was it not told my Lord what I did when Jezebel slew the prophets of the Lord? How I hid 100 men of the Lord's prophets by 50 in a cave and fed them with bread and water. And now thou sayest, go, tell thy Lord, behold, Elijah is here, and he shall slay me. And Elijah said, as the Lord of hosts liveth, before whom I stand, I will surely shew myself unto him this day. So Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. And it came to pass, when Ahab saw Elijah, that Ahab said unto him, art thou he that troubleth Israel? So notice he didn't bow down himself to him and say, oh, the servant of the Most High God. He says, you're causing trouble in Israel. And this is important and a keynote when we talk about believing the system, mainline systems and stuff like that. That when a person is the head of the system, so Ahab is the head of the system, he's the head of the snake at this point. And he's leading out in the rebellion and killing prophets at this point, which is his wife really doing, but he's the king. And Ahab and Jezebel become the Revelation 17. The woman ride the beast. Who is the beast? The beast is the king. And she's riding the beast, and she's using the beast to kill the prophets of the Lord. So she is definitely part of the system. He's the beast. He's a brute beast. He's just controlled by emotions and carnality. And she riding him and then telling him, kill the prophets. So this is the setup of Revelation 18. Probably you can't really understand Revelation 18 without understanding the story of Ahab and the story of John the Baptist. They're the two stories to me that goes with a woman riding the beast and riding the system. And then you understand the church is riding the state. And that's the story we have. So here, art thou trouble he that trouble Israel? So if you go now and say, And I remember this doctor I used to work with, Dr. Sorge, used to know and deal with personally, and he says he's been arrested before because he would be somebody that talking about they're selling way before he would talk about before the FDA came out and retract and pull the drug Premarin, pregnant mare's urine from the market for years before I've been hearing him talking about how American women are being given horse urine, and so but he said he was arrested before because of making certain statements. So when you talk certain things, they say you're the problem. You see, that's the point. But who's the problem? Is it Ahab and Jezebel is a problem, or is it the prophet is the problem? And that's where you get into this mindset when a person says Ahab is the problem, or if a person if a person say Elijah is the problem, are they ignorant? Are they compromised? Have they compromised? Are they going to be broken by making a statement? Are they broken already? Or are they a believer? So I'll finish up and get back to my main text that I'll be talking about this week. So notice here, and it came to pass when Ahab saw Elijah, that Ahab said unto Elijah, art thou he that troubleth Israel? And he answered, I have not troubled Israel, but thou and thy father's house, in that ye that have forsaken the commandments of the Lord, and thou hast followed Baalim. Now therefore send and gather to me all Israel unto Mount Carmel, and the prophets of Baal 450, and the prophets of the groves 400, which eat at Jezebel's table. So this becomes a fascination. The prophets that eat at Jezebel's table. It would be good to, I don't know if it's good to interview all of them, but some of them, like, what did you do to get there? Are you sitting at Jezebel's table because you're ignorant? Are you sitting there because you've compromised something? Are you sitting there because sitting there going to cause you to break? Something going to break in your head? Just sitting there. You're sitting around and say, look, I'm at Jezebel's table. Or are you broken? Or are you a believer? Fascinating. You see, these are the questions you ask when somebody's sitting there. Are they compromising? Are they ignorant? What happens? So when you're watching that, so why do some only consider mainstream and not alternative? And we know that it can feel safe in mainline, mainstream, government, other approved channels and systems. It feels safe. And what makes a person a child or head of the system? And how they become that? How did Ahab become that? How does what happened? What happened in Jezebel's head? How does she become a person that kill the prophets and then replace them with these people that sit at her table? Like imagine they get to, they probably feel cute. Oh, we get to eat at Jezebel's table. Like I've seen people throughout the years, they eat at Jezebel's table, and I'm wondering, I wonder how they become that. Like what got them there? Very fascinating. So now I'm going to go back to now the statements of Jesus, John chapter 1, verse 1, because these statements are what you call, wow, when Christ says, man, the world love you, they will never hate you, to his disciples. That's crazy. That's just crazy to think about that your master looking at you and say, they love you. Why they don't love you? Why they love you? Because you don't talk against their evil. And you see people all the time that preach, they're cute, but they talk about doctrines, but they don't talk about sin. Because it's talk about sin, people like, that made me uncomfortable. I'm not going to invite you to Thanksgiving. So notice here, John chapter 1, verse 1 onward. And after these things, Jesus walked in Galilee, for he would not walk in Jewry. He would not, he would not walk in Jewry, because the Jews sought to kill him. So again, very important. We don't want to miss any of these things. And if we miss it, it's only because I'm running out of time. So I would have to skip some of it. But I'll tell you. So he can't walk when where there's a concentration of Jews. He has to go where there's a mixture of people. So as you know, you've probably heard me saying this before, and you can study this out for yourself, that in Galilee, it was an admixture of people. It was hybrid people. There was people from other nations. Most of Christ's successful ministry and healing was done in places where there was not a lot of Jews. It was a mixture. And so you can find that a lot of time you go to areas where the main people in the country are not concentrated. It's easier to talk about certain facts. But if you imagine, if you go to like areas that are 100% in the system, and you go tell them that says it was wrong, you say 20 years ago, 15 years ago, for women to be eating horse urine, they were mad because how dare you talk about it's our system. You see what I'm saying? So how do you become part of the system? Well, the Jewry is part of the system when you're in that system. Where, can you imagine, you go to somebody that is a Zionist, you can tell them that there's any question about what they're doing and the evils they're doing, because there's no evil. They say it's false equivalence. So notice here, now the Jews' feast of the tabernacles was at hand. His brethren therefore said unto him, Depart hence and go into Judea, that thy disciples also may see the works that thou doest. For there is no man that doeth anything in secret, and himself seeketh to know openly. If thou do these things, show thyself to the world. For neither did his brethren believe him. So they're saying, you do this thing, show yourself to the world. Now, this is important to know because the Feast of Tabernacle, normally we talk about Feast of Tabernacle, you know, time when it come on to Day of Atonement, all these, what they call fall feasts, comes in the fall. Interesting enough, it is it 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 is it is their high time, right? They're supposed to be their more righteous time, and it's more the righteous time that they're talking about killing Christ. A very, very, very fascinating thing. And so normally Christ died at the Passover, right? Because that would be now the spring feast. And so it's always interesting where they say Christ is 33 and a half years old. So normally if you come back 6 months going backwards from, how do you say, if you count 6 months going backwards, you get back to, from spring, you get back to the fall. And in the fall is when normally they do the Feast of Tabernacles, Day of Atonement, all this celebration. So the question is, what is the birth of Christ? If Christ died 33 and a half years old, do you come back 3 months? Or you get back to the end of the year, the beginning of the year, or do you come back 6 months? You get back to the fall time. And you say, well, when was the birth of Christ, right? And then the question becomes, would the birth of Christ more line up with the Day of Atonement, Feast of Tabernacles, yeah. Just a note. I'm not telling you when Christ was born, but I'm just saying, if you do the math, you're always going to get back to the fall. Did Christ born in the fall? Definitely didn't born in Christmas, but did he born in the fall? And when you do Day of Atonement, is it like, was yesterday Christ's birthday, or was it 2 weeks ago, when that massacre happened, and all that type of stuff? Just because the Jews celebrated at certain times, and it goes already. The side note, probably shouldn't mention that side note, but side note worthy of discussion. So notice here. So his brethren didn't believe him. Terrible to be in a situation like that you're preaching something and even the people close to you don't believe it. So they didn't believe. Then Jesus said unto them, my time is not yet come, but your time is always ready. Your time is good. Why? The world cannot hate you, but me it hated, because I testify of it, that the works thereof are evil. So remember, similar to the story, as I said, similar stories in John the Baptist. John the Baptist testify that that Herod and them people I wasn't say Jezebel. The stories are confusing, but it's the same story. He shouldn't have his brother's wife, and then the woman get her daughter, which would be like the Protestant churches, to dance. And that's what the Protestant churches do, they dance. And when they dance, they end up killing John. But John was telling them that they were evil, in other words. We'll study that. So notice here, go ye up unto this feast. I go not up yet. So that is important, yet. Not to this feast, for my time is not yet full come. So Christ is saying, I need some more time, right? Remember, this is the fall feast. Christ's time will not yet come. He needs a few more months. And when he had said these words unto them, he abode still in Galilee. But when his brethren were gone up, then went he also up unto the feast, not openly, but as it were in secret. Because remember, he's not part of the system. He's not mainline. Then the Jews sought him at the feast and said, "Where is he?" So they expect him to come. And he should be able to be there, right? This is his feast, as I'm saying. I'm not saying this is his birthday. But imagine on your birthday trying to kill you. But it would be some approximation in my mind. So it is his feast, right? Now remember, now this is his feast. This is he ordained this feast, and the feast is ordained on a certain date. I don't know why. I guess we'll know when we get to heaven why these feasts have a certain time period. Because remember, the Passover was going to be the birth of Christ. Sorry, the death of Christ. So the Passover is the death of Christ. So he ordained the feast and say, at this time in the year, I'm gonna die, and he did this thousands of years before he came to the earth. So at a certain time, there's a atonement, blah blah. You know how it goes. So so he's supposed to be there, right? And notice here, and there was much murmuring among the people concerning him. For some said, he is a good man, and others said, nah, but he deceiveth the people. Howbeit no man spake openly of him for fear of the Jews. So you know they were winding up themselves. So again, my question would be: the person who is hating Christ, how did they come to be that? How did they come there? How did they get there? Now, about the midst of the feast, Jesus went up into the temple and taught. And the Jews marveled, saying, "How knowest this man letters, having never learned?" So this is a fascinating thing about Elijah and Ahab and stuff like that, an alternative and mainline. The question is, if somebody is not in the mainline, whatever, mainstream, can they be learned? I know if you've been fascinated with questions like that, right? Can they be learned? Because one would think the only people that went a certain route, they're learned. Like, in order for you to teach the Bible, you have to go to a certain institution. In order for you to understand science, you have to go to a certain institution. Anybody else should be arrested as a quack. That's been the story I've heard for decades since I've been in America. And there's no such thing as herbs. We're going to deal with that on Wednesday. There's no such thing as alternative remedies. So on a health note, this is what we're going to go. So if a woman has some problem with menopause, that's what it is. Can she take anything other than what is FDA approved? We live in a culture that there's so many people on the street because of drugs, but we in a culture that is the number one pusher of drugs. The society has a lot of its members on some drugs, Xanax, Prozac, these big blockbuster drugs. But they're drugs, they're literal drugs. They're drugs that cause you to have addiction. And then the people leave and go to trank, opiates, meth, all these different things. Or we have a system that create more drug addicts than anywhere else in the world. But is that system FDA approved? So if you have depression and you want to be able to maintain your mind a certain way, is there alternatives? See, in this system, we have the system that people are really mainline and they consider nothing else. And I'm always wondering, how did that come about? So notice here, and the Jews marvel and say, "Know ye not this man letters?" And Jesus answered them and said, "My doctrine is not mine, but his that sent me. If any man if any man will do his will, he shall know of the doctrine, whether it is of God or whether I speak of myself." So Christ gives a different criteria of how to, for me to analyze, because I've often asked myself, me in my own thinking, how do I know what I'm saying is right? And why would I think what I'm saying is right? I'm not talking about somebody's judging me. Nobody ever asked me this question. So I'm editing myself and I say, wait a minute. If I'm saying this and all these different people over here is saying something different, why would I, like, am I leading myself down to a primus part of destruction? You ask myself these questions. This is me. This is, as I said, this is not preaching here. I'm meditating. I'm just sharing you my meditation for this week. I've often think about this. I say, could I lead myself to a path of destruction? Now, what is my criteria? What is my filters? How do I filter to make sure that I'm not teaching you craziness and I'm not crazy and I'm not destroying myself? Because remember, my whole idea here is I want the best results for you, but I want more so the best result for myself. So how do I know, like, and for my wife especially, and then those that I worship with and my family, how do I know that if I'm telling people not to eat horse urine, how do I know that's right? If all the PhDs, how can 400, like Elijah and 450 prophets of the grove, 400 prophets of the grove, 450 prophets of the whatever, how does Elijah know? What if Elijah said, ain't no God talking to me. I'm hearing voices. Like, how do you know I'm not hearing voices? That's what I'm saying. When you have the major media with all these different people that work in PR and stuff like that, why are they not wrong? Do you ask yourself the question like that? If you hear me talking, you say, he crazy. How can he be right and the whole system is wrong? You know what I'm saying? That's the way I think. And so I have to have criteria to filter to make sure I'm not messing myself up. Because ultimately, everybody have to worry about their own salvation. I'm worried about more my salvation than anybody else. And then secondly would be my wife and those that's close to me. Why am I not a false prophet? Why am I not a cult leader? Those are things that I have to ask myself. Brutal questions, but I ask myself the question. You don't need to ask it of me. I do that. I do my own due diligence, so to speak, because ultimately I'm always wondering when somebody's a cult leader, how did they get there? How did they not see what they're saying is madness? Yeah, that's how I do life. I'm just telling you my meditation. I don't know if it makes me look good or bad. I'm just telling you that I don't even care. So I'm just telling you how I view. I talk straight here. So notice here, if any man will do his will. So if you notice, it doesn't say any man will be a philosopher. And as I always say, my thing is I preach what I practice. I don't practice what I preach. I preach what I practice. You see, I do it differently. So I don't practice what I preach what I practice. In other words, I do like this meditation here is because I can say this and I can say I've never heard anybody do a presentation like this because this is what I do in my own mental exercises because I have to protect myself ultimately because I want to get to heaven and I want to live a good life here on this earth as best as I can with all the mess in this life. So I have to practice and then I preach it after I practice it if it works. So notice, if any man will do his will, you're doing it. It's not theory. He shall know the doctrine. So how you know the doctrine or the teaching is real, whether it is of God or whether it is I speak of myself. So in other words, if I go and I say, okay, pregnant horse urine, and then a few years later, the FDA come out and say all these women die of cancer, I say, oh, this was true. See, I'm only preaching what is public. There's a video I'm gonna share with those that I know personally that I text, and it's last night. John Hagee, a mainline American preacher, was saying that there is no two-state solution. There's only a one-state solution. Now, if you listen to me last week, I'd said that Israel and the seven kingdoms of Western Europe never do a two-state solution. Now, if somebody hear me say that, they'll say, Lord, come on, man, you're wrong. You're just wrong. Even America is promoting a two-state solution. I'll say, yes, I get that. But for me, for 2,500 years of history, where seven Western kingdoms in Europe never do a two-state solution, why now they're going to do it? So I made a statement. Somebody could say, you're a fool for making a statement. You can't prove that to be true. I said, okay. And then yesterday I hear John Hagee is saying there's no such thing as a two-state solution. I said, okay, see, there you go, I'm right. You know, that's what I do. It is not me just having opinions. I have to prove my opinions right myself. I question myself and say, okay, I'm looking at history. I came to the conclusion there's no such thing as a two-state solution. Western Europe doesn't do that. America never does a two-state solution. Where are they coming from with this two-state solution? And yet you'll never hear Palestinians say this. I'm the only person I've ever heard said it outside of John Hagee. But I've been calling that. I said, Western Europe never does it. There's no history of it. They'll never happen. You see, it's in other words, I practice or I look at the history or I look at the Bible and say, well, this is what the Bible teaching. I'm going to go with the Bible because the Bible is true. History is true. But people making nonsense statement, that's not true. And then I preach that. I have to test my own self. So Christ says, you will know if it's true and what it is. I'll take one more sentence and then I'll pick this up tomorrow again and I'll lead on this. So notice here, and he speak of himself. So notice here, he that speaketh of himself seeketh his own glory, but he that speaketh, that seeketh his glory that sent him, the same is true, and no unrighteousness is in him. So Christ is saying, listen, The difference between him and say the Pharisees is that he's not seeking the upper place in the feast. He's seeking to glorify the Father. So truth is empirical. Truth cannot be compromised because truth has time, and there's time to prove it. So when you go to the Bible, what the Bible is doing is telling you, I don't care what the people say. This is what God says, and this is what history say. That is empirical knowledge, and we stick to that, and that's what it is. So we're gonna continue tomorrow by God's grace. So to eat or promote, is that coming from whatever that is that coming from somebody's ignorance, compromise? It's going to break them, or they're already broken, or they're a believer, right? When does people eat certain things? As I say, somebody eating horse urine, where do they get that from? Somebody taking their child, giving a child 72 vaccine, even for H8, even for STDs. Why would that somebody do that? What did they believe that? Are they just ignorant? Why do they believe that much? It's like candy. Well, we're not in that mindset. We're in the alternative mindset. So we look to alternatives, but we believe the system has a role, but we don't swallow everything the system say. We double check. Let us pray. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. I thank you, dear Lord, for your blessing upon us. Thank you for your word, dear Lord, that you've given to us, that we shall have a light in this world of darkness. May you be with us, dear Lord, that we too shall accept and become light in this world. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, thanks for being with me here on Revive Reform Radio. Looking forward to talking to you again live tomorrow when we should talk about church-related matters. Until then, I pray that you may continue to walk with the King.